Okay, breaking news. Well, it wasn't really news. This one flew under the radar, and I don't know how that happened. I was looking at the news a couple of days ago, and the Premier, Dominic Perrottet, was on, and he didn't have his glasses on. And I then noticed the next day in the newspaper, again, a photo of him without his glasses on. And I thought to myself, well, hang on a second. Is he wearing contact lenses? Because he has distinctive sort of glasses, the clear framed ones. And lo and behold, I thought I'd try and, investigate this further as I could in a Bob Woodward fashion. And the story made its way all the way down as far as Wollongong when Paul rang through.
So the article on Monday was the release of the curriculum update about reading and everything else for school kids. And they announced that the Premier wasn't able to read that because he'd broken his glasses earlier in the day. When he was interviewed about it, he admitted that he reversed over him in his driveway.
I don't believe that. He's covering for someone.
Chase down the footage.
So I figured that there's only one way we're going to get to the bottom of this, and that is to speak to the Premier, Dominic Perrottet himself, and find out whether or not this, in fact, is Speckgate. Good morning, Premier. How are you?
Well, how do you feel? How are you going?
Good to talk to you. So, where are the glasses? And surely you'd have more than one pair.
Well, you never have more than one pair when you've got 7 kids because they break them all the time. And this has been pretty a big drama. I think so there's been more interest in my glasses than Harry and Meghan's Netflix series.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, absolutely. Can I say, though, just to reverse back, and I don't mean to catch you out here, but I think I heard you say you blamed the kids when, in fact, the official story was you run over them. So what is, in fact, the story, Premier?
This one was my fault. It was Sunday, and I was getting the kids in the car to take them out to get our Christmas tree. And I had my prescription sunglasses on, and I had my other glasses just in my shirt, and I didn't notice anything. Drove out there, came back, then realised my glasses weren't with me, and I looked on the ground, and they were completely smashed. So they'd obviously fallen off under the tyre, and I'd reversed straight over them.
Well, I like that. However, can I bring you this scenario and work with me? You're opening a new school at Westmead the following day where you're introducing a curriculum for reading. I just find the whole thing a little bit suspicious, Premier.
No, you asked about contacts. I did have my contacts in, but I find contacts quite irritating. So the sooner I can get my glasses back, better. But, bizarrely, what was leading the news last night was not the important changes to the curriculum. It was what happened to my glasses.
His glasses. Well, I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. And one of the things that you were doing, in fact, was make Sydney great again. MAGSA, as I like to call it, although that obviously wasn't the name of it. But, the idea is to, bring all of the great things back to Sydney. And I mentioned this a moment ago that the Quay Quarter Tower was named the World Building of the Year in 2022. Yeah. And rather than demolishing the building, they've just built onto it, which was brilliant and sustainable too.
Oh, it's a beautiful building, and I've always wanted to ensure that we have the most beautiful city in the world, and that means we've got to have the best architecture. So I guess getting rid of those old brutalist buildings from the 1970s when they didn't actually have that vision, they focused on utility rather than beauty. It's great to see Sydney's coming back to life, and I've also been out at the new art gallery, which is another
I heard about this. I didn't even know about this. And is this the one that's been built underground? Is that right?
There's oil tankers underground that you go down into, and it's absolutely amazing. So I'd encourage all your listeners to go out to the new art gallery. It's a wonderful building, Japanese architects, and I think we're the greatest city in the world. We've got to have the best and greatest cultural facilities as well. So that new art gallery is amazing. The building is beautiful, and when you go underground to those oil tankers, which they only discovered when they were building it. And they've now incorporated that as part of the art gallery.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had a sort of a love-hate relationship with Sydney with a lot of people who go overseas because they think, well, that's it. There's more to the world than this. And having lived overseas and, especially places like, the UK where they've got some terrible buildings. And now I've come back. I'm at that stage of my life, which kind of sounds, I guess, jingoistic, but it's not, where I was driving over the Anzac Bridge the other day and I looked out over the city and I thought, how incredibly lucky we are to live in such a beautiful city. And sometimes I guess you have to go away to appreciate what you missed. But we really, truly do have one of the most incredible and beautiful cities in the entire world, and there's no denying that.
And we've got to make it better. but we've got to continue to strive to make sure that our city continues to grow and prosper and flourish. And when you think about our harbour, the most beautiful harbour anywhere in the world, for decades, the Western Harbour just sat there dormant. We didn't do anything with it because we had the eastern side, which was obviously beautiful with the bridge and the opera house. There would be cities around the world that would die to have what we have, and we now have Barangaroo set up, which is fantastic, and we've just got to keep doing more. We've got to keep making sure our city grows, and that means that when we invest in Sydney, they're not vanity projects. Our people deserve the very, very best, and we've got to keep making it better.
I agree with you, although I'd like to also see, a theory or perhaps a principle of don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. There were some things that, I do miss that I think we could have still kept, although, a lot of people weren't using the monorail. I really like the monorail, and I like how it gave us this futuristic feel. And also the Sydney Entertainment Centre, which is now just a block of flats. If you want to go and see live music, and a lot of us have a relationship with the Entertainment Centre going back years. Now, if you want to go and see live music, you've got to go. I mean, there's the Aware Theatre, but you've got to go to Homebush. It's a shame that we don't have something like the Entertainment Centre, which exists within the middle of the city for the big concerts.
Yeah, well, we've got to do more, but we've set up the ICC. In fact, I was down at Tumbalong Park the other day for the Socceroos match, and we had 25,000 people there. They weren't, and the park was full. But then on the convention centre, people lined all the way up, and by the time the game started, we had people on the roof. So if you build it, they will come. But you've got to really break through the naysays to achieve it. I mean, I came out with a idea to put a bar on top of the Mitchell Library, and everyone said, "Oh, you can't do that." And now it's one of the most beautiful bars in Sydney, overlooking the harbour. We've just got to. Yeah, go on.
Well, I was going to say, can I go to a question without notice? And that's just that Marty's just rung through a moment ago from Liverpool. And I'd like to put him on with you. And hang on one sec, because this technically means I have to do something, which isn't all that easy in this day and age. But hopefully we've got Marty there. Marty, are you on?
Mate, I am indeed.
Okay, now you've got the Premier on the phone. What was your question?
Well, Premier, we were just talking about Sydney institutions that have gone, the live music scene. Springfield was an absolute institution.
Oh, Springfield's in the cross.
Yes. Like the music scene, it was an institution, and I can't emphasise that enough. It's gone.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Well, yeah, and the city's gone through a tough time during the pandemic, and I was previously the treasurer and worked very closely with live music to give them the financial support to get through, but it's been a very difficult time. But, we are not a suburban city. We're a global city, and we've got to be a 24-hour city. And if we cut back the red tape and regulations and allow our city to thrive, then live music will continue to prosper.
Yeah.
But if we don't do that, then people won't invest, and they'll move away.
Well, that's right. I think, sorry to interrupt you there, Premier, but I think what Marty was saying is that there's, a lot of, focus on other things other than the arts, and in particular live music in Sydney that really suffered as a result of COVID. And a lot of them haven't been able to bounce back, and would also like to see some funding and also some focus on, trying to get people back into live music and, maybe some kind of money for live music in Sydney.
Well, and we put a fair bit of investment in that during the pandemic, and I work closely with the Lord Mayor Clover Moore. Particularly, in fact, we've been putting together an entire plan of events for summer to breathe life back into Sydney CBD, and then have that momentum continue next year. We really want to make sure. It's a great summer. There's heaps of there's events for everybody to come to. We've got Christmas markets starting at the Botanical Gardens this Friday for the first time. The Sydney Festival is beginning. There's a whole lot of events over summer, and hopefully that will give us the strength and the momentum for people to say, you know what, I want to come into the city not just Monday to Friday, but on the weekends as well. We shouldn't have a city where there's tumbleweed rolling down Market
No, I
Place
absolutely
on a
agree,
Sunday.
yeah, exactly. And even iconic venues like the Frankie's Pizza as well. Listen, I'll leave it there, but if any of your story changes, I'm happy with your alibi so far, with Spec-Gate. However,
We'll keep the intrigue going.
some people would have said, why hasn't he gone to Specsavers and bought one pair free? So if that story changes, by all means, get back to us. Terrific to talk to you. Have a great Christmas as well.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Oakville. Bye.